So what is your assessment after you listen to the INEC chairman over the weekend? What are your thoughts about how things are likely to go this week?
Very well, thank you. It was an unfortunate development that we had a situation where the key issues that were raised by the INEC chairman about logistics, the inclement weather, and of course he talked about sabotage, the fires that go up their offices in Plateau, Abia, and then the big one in Awka, Anambra State. Well, let's start from the logistics because you can know that this election wasn't fixed today. I mean, the timetable had been out for over a year. And even though there has been inclement weather from the Abuja end, we didn't quite hear a lot about cancellation of flights throughout last week. So the excuse of inclement weather, flights, and even slow-moving haulage vehicles appear not to be very well grounded, because if you move a truck that is in good condition from Abuja, it will get to any part of Nigeria. If it moves on a Monday, latest by Tuesday evening, it will be there. And one had expected that this material should have been dispatched to the various state capitals latest 48 hours before the vote starts. So being at the airport, as they said, for the greater part of Friday showed that they didn't plan well. So for that, I don't think it was an acceptable excuse. Now, talking about the sabotage, one would have expected that security would have been reinforced around INEC offices, considering the tension and the drama in the air, especially at the level of the presidential elections. So for INEC and the security agencies to have waited for these things to be born showed that the sabotage was not something that was not anticipated. Right. And then having to wait until 5 hours, 15 minutes to the start of the election to announce the postponement was something altogether. So it was an unfortunate decision, but going forward.
Okay, Eze, before you speak about, Eze, you are about to make your case for whether or not INEC can prepare for these elections and how credible INEC can be conducting these polls. Please go ahead.
Yes, I said going forward, INEC chairman was asked pointedly whether there was some backroom political interference that led to the postponement. He said no. He was also asked pointedly whether they had enough resources, enough money, and he said they were not complaining. So one expects that they should be briefing Nigerians on a daily basis about how they've been able to plug the loopholes and the challenges they've had. And also, if there is any interference at all or any lack of resources, it will be better for INEC to open up so that Nigerians will know, because Nigerians will be unforgiving if by Saturday we still have a lot of hiccups and a lot of challenges. So I expect that all the materials should reach their destinations in the next 2-3 days. And then those card readers, they say they are still configuring, they should also be able to finish it on time and even get some backup card readers. So in the event we have any disruptions in the system, so that on Saturday, everybody will be prepared. The polling will open at the same time and virtually close at the same time across the federation. So that's the minimum expectation of Nigerians. And also, INEC should still open up campaigning, because there will be a lot of voter apathy if the political parties are told not to campaign again until 48 hours to the election. So let them open up campaigns so that the political parties and candidates can still go around until 48 hours to the election.
Right, what we're hearing is that INEC is going to be discussing that issue at the meeting today. But let's speak about the very delicate issue of the sensitive materials, you know, the ballot papers and so forth that have been distributed already. The INEC chairman did say that there will be an audit to ensure that everything is collected. But that, I think, is where many people are concerned. Given the history of fraud in elections in Nigeria, how confident are you that INEC can safeguard this material?
If INEC wants to safeguard those materials, that will be possible. But unfortunately, you know, INEC is not just the chairman and the commissioner sitting in Abuja. There are all manner of staff and foot soldiers all over the place. So I think that the securing those materials should be done in the presence of the key party agents and their officials. And there should be very heavy sanctions for any INEC official who tries to manipulate the system or rig the polls in favor of any of the political parties. So it is possible, particularly if there's political will from the top and hierarchy of INEC, and then they push it down, and anybody found wanting is severely punished. So that's doable if all the parties and the electoral umpire decide to do so.
I think you make a great point that INEC should allow the political parties and perhaps civil society and the international observers to verify the collection of these materials just to confirm that everything is okay before the elections on Saturday. And I do get the sense that even civil society and the political parties perhaps should be a little more vocal on this point to ensure that they should be allowed to verify what INEC says, given the history of INEC, especially with what happened last week. Many are suggesting that INEC simply cannot be trusted. Your reaction to that?
No, INEC can still be trusted, but what should happen is that in those areas where there have been a mix-up, in those areas where there have been deliberate mischief, I think INEC, from the top, should document these things, and immediately after the elections, those officials should be punished in accordance with the law. They should either be set forth to the courts for trial, or those that will be dismissed from service, so that we have a price, a penalty to pay for not doing one's job in a way or trying to game the system. Otherwise, there will be impunity. You see people doing things the way they like and they get away with it. I don't want to believe that INEC at the top is corrupt. But how they manage the situation, if there are some foot soldiers that have refused to do their duty, there should be somebody who is a supervisor who should say, you have failed in your duty, this is the sanction, this is the penalty. Otherwise, it will be business as usual. So I don't want to preempt the system to say they cannot be trusted. Let them, at least, let's maintain that trust until Saturday when they show their hands fully, and then we can take it off from there. But it is important that they begin to brief Nigerians on a daily basis on developments, and civil society monitors should also begin to put them on their toes to say, how have you plugged the identified loopholes, so that we don't get to the polls on Saturday and we are still doing lamentations.
Right, and I think everyone really, all hands really have to be on deck to ensure that these elections are credible, given what has happened over the weekend. But let's speak about the issue of voter apathy and how important it is for INEC to allow political parties to continue to campaign this week, especially considering what happened last week and what many are expecting should be a lot of apathy around the process. We did actually hear reports of individuals actually being on their way to the polling booths only to hear that there will be no elections. So your perspective on how crucial that is to ensure that these elections really reflect the wishes of most Nigerians?
Yeah, it is very important that the candidates are allowed to go back to the field to, tell their supporters to please exercise patience and come out on Saturday and do the voting. It's also important for INEC on its own to do a lot of sensitization, because I watched a particular television station last night and saw a recent electoral commissioner telling Nigerians things that INEC should have told Nigerians that has not been in the public domain. So on their own, they should also give Nigerians the details of how the process will be credible, of how the process will be free and fair, so that Nigerians can follow. Otherwise, in fact, there are a lot of people who travel to vote, and if they don't have the money to come back to their respective destinations and go back again, they may not be able to vote. So there's a lot of sensitization that needs to be done, a lot of appeals for people to still make some sacrifice to make sure that they vote. So if you simply close down the process and say on Saturday we come back, we could possibly lose up to 1/3 of the voters who may not be patient enough, or who may be so fed up and angry with the system that they will not come back on Saturday.
And indeed, we have heard some of the political parties, the leading political parties, insisting that INEC has no basis in law to stop them from campaigning this week. But I want to hear your thoughts on the potential legal challenges to these elections, given what has happened. At the end of the day, many will argue that it all depends on the quality of the elections on Saturday. But do you think that there's already enough of a basis for many who would feel disgruntled about the outcome of the elections to challenge the outcome?
I don't think so. Rather, what has happened offers INEC the opportunity to make sure that the election becomes more free and fair. Assuming they will have done an election that has 40–50% credibility, with the more time they have, they could be able to move it up to 75, 80, or 90. So I don't think any ground has arisen to challenge the elections after it's been done on Saturday. It is what happens on the polling day and how the elections are collated, how the results are announced, whether there is violence, that will eventually provide the ground for a challenge or otherwise. But I think the message needs to be sent clearly to INEC that Nigerians cannot tolerate or forgive a shoddy job come Saturday, and that Nigerians will also not tolerate any stalemate or saying an election is inconclusive, except if it is clearly inconclusive, that the elections must produce a winner, that the votes must count, and that the will of the Nigerian people should be allowed to be expressed through credible, free, and fair elections. That's the minimum expectation on Saturday. Already there's tension in the air. Anything that seeks to game or manipulate the system may create some unwanted scenario, which we don't pray for.
Right. If we come
like
back
post-election violence, we are not praying for that.
If I can briefly come back to the issue of voter apathy, some of the polls that we had been tracking before this election suggest that there's a huge number of Nigerians who are really undecided about who they would vote for. And I just want to get your perspective on what the postponement could mean for those voters, and especially if we do not see INEC allowing the political parties to campaign again. Your perspective on that?
Well, very well. Anybody who hadn't made up his mind and still sitting on the fence, I don't think there's much anybody can do unless something dramatic happens between the candidates between now and Saturday, or a candidate commits a very huge gaffe. But I think that in the Nigeria of today, enough has happened in the last 4, 8, 15, 20 years for anybody to make up his mind where he stands, because no one can afford to sit on the fence for so long. Sitting on the fence cannot take Nigeria forward. It is not an option. Everybody should come out and exercise his civic rights and responsibilities and be prepared to live with the choice we've made. And after 4 years, we also have the opportunity of re-electing or throwing out another person. It's just like a football team. The team is doing badly, and of course, in most instances, the coach is sacrificed. If the coach is not doing well, you keep hiring another coach until you get the right one that will do what the owners of the club want.
All right, Eze, we have to end it there. Thank you so much for speaking to us this morning. Eze Onyekpere, Lead Director at the Center for Social Justice.